Hello and welcome to a live kerfuffle break on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. It is nice to be back. It's good to see some familiar faces in the chat. Hello, John, Pirate Tomsky, Therese, Ninja Kitty's here, Adam Worrell. I'm so happy to see you guys. We are live. I'm very grateful for being able to take some time off this week, although the reason I took some time off was because I was at a 48-hour live stream. Actually, it was longer than that in the end, I think, at Chrissy Mayer, the comedian Chrissy Mayer's Content House. And it was so much fun. She had brought together all different kinds of streamers. She rented a place in the Poconos. I love when she does these. I think they just keep getting better. And that was a load of fun. So I did see some of you in the chat at various parts of that stream. But there was silliness, there was frivolity, there were serious conversations. I love going to these also because you just get to see friends and people that you haven't seen in a while. And she and Frank are, I'm very grateful to them for putting this together, for bringing people together like this. So if you haven't seen that and you want to see some of the hilarity, you could go and check it out. There were people there like Gino Bisconti, one of my favorite comedians. If you haven't watched it, I got to interview him for Deprogrammed about comedy in the age of woke. And I love Gino. I was thinking about his comedy this morning in preparing for today's topic because he's so funny. He I just saw this in the chat. Therese said, every time I check the stream, Keri was in the same spot in her jammies. I did take my pajamas, my onesie, my Christmas onesie. They said, bring your Christmas stuff. I'm like, sure. Of course. Did some people need to be told that? and yeah, we did, because they stream continuously for over 48 hours. There were times where the first night I was there, I think I stayed up till 6 a.m. So then there are people streaming in the overnight shift, and then you lose all concept of what time of day it is. And I would stay in my pajamas until it was time to go out on an excursion. We went to an arcade. That was a lot of fun. We went shopping. We went to an escape room. It was the most fun. It was the best escape room I've ever done. I've only ever done one other one, but this one was so much fun. I wanted to do another one after we solved it. You didn't even notice the time passing. An hour went by. It didn't even feel like it because you're solving these puzzles. It was so fun. So if you haven't done an escape room, try one. But yeah, Gino Visconti, he's so funny. And I think Chrissy's like this too. A lot of the comedians I was hanging out with there are sort of like this. They make a lot of jokes that are on the surface. Leftist people get very uncomfortable with the kind of jokes they make, and especially if they're thoroughly woke people, they're going to get upset. But even people who are sort of in the middle, or people who are classical liberals, will get a little uncomfortable because they make jokes that on the surface are play on sexist stereotypes, racist stereotypes, that kind of stuff. And I was talking about this with my husband. It's funny because the only reason those jokes are funny is because they're currently very taboo. And if people really wanted someone to stop making jokes about how women can't drive or Asians can't drive or what have you, then they would stop overreacting and it wouldn't be funny anymore. Do you know what I mean? People overreact. That's what makes it funny, because you're not supposed to say this. There's a element of the humor that is, oh, this can't be said. And I've been to Keanu Thompson. She was also there, also is great at this kind of comedy. I've been in the room at their comedy shows, and it's just brilliant because there is no demographic that is safe. Everyone gets made fun of. And that's the great equalizer. That's actually a place where, hey, we recognize everyone as a fully formed human, and no one needs to be protected. No group needs to be protected from comedy built around stereotypes. Nobody does. And so you're, in this day and age, in the current culture we live in, leftists are perfectly fine doing safe comedy where they do deal in stereotypes, but it's safe. It's not edgy. It's not funny because there's no danger in saying it. There's no taboo in saying it. For example, jokes about white people, fair game. Everyone does them. As a white person who hears a joke about white people, okay, it doesn't hurt my feelings. Is it funny? Sometimes it is. If it's about how we love casserole, that's pretty funny. But um, sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's just lazy. And again, there's no taboo against it. So it's not really, it's not very challenging, I guess I would say. Jokes about men, straight white men, easy, not challenging, very safe to play in that area. But if you do jokes about Black people, or you do jokes about women or trans people or any of the social justice protected so-called marginalized oppressed groups, if you do jokes about any of those groups, it's like, oh, what's happening? And that makes it funnier. And so when you're in one of their comedy shows, which I've been in before, there was the famous incident that happened at the Dallas show sometime this past year. I'm bad with time. I think it was maybe 6 months ago. Some of you guys saw that. There was a group of women, very large women, who got offended at one of Chrissy's jokes about Dylan Mulvaney, and they jumped up and called everybody transphobes, and they stormed out of the room. Right? It was funny because I was in the lobby when this happened. I had gone to the bathroom, and I saw the original where they were kind of trying to heckle Chrissy or yelling back at her, but I didn't see the storm out. I saw the storm out once it happened in the lobby. And what was really funny was when they got to the lobby, they were complaining to the management there. And I didn't know what had just happened. I didn't know they jumped up and said, "You're all transphobes," or whatever. I just saw them in the lobby. They're clearly upset. They were complaining to the management. And one of the things they said, this is so revealing. They said, all those people in that room, there's minorities there. There's minorities there. They're supposed to be on our side. Like, they were upset that there were Black people, trans people, gay people, women in that room laughing at these jokes. That bothered them. That everyone in that room was cool with it. And it's like, yeah, like, this is funny. And that I just thought was so revealing, that it wasn't so much that they were offended that, oh, she makes jokes about everyone, but they were also offended that anyone in the protected groups, we're supposed to be on the same side, would find it funny and not be butthurt about it like they were. And that was very revealing. Anyway, so I think that kind of comedy is brilliant. I think it's necessary, and I think comedy will change when culture changes. It always does. Think of the court jester. The court jester makes fun of the king. It's like the one person you're not supposed to make fun of. That's why it was funny. It was taboo. You're always going to find comedy in places that are sort of whatever the cultural norm is about, like, this group is off limits or this subject is off limits. Like, oh, you can't make jokes about rape. I've heard people say that. That's not true. You can make a joke about anything. Now, is it a good joke? Is it a funny joke? It's subjective to some degree, but you can do comedy about it, and you can do some really great comedy about dark subjects. Norm Macdonald's a great example. He used to do jokes about 9/11, and it was so taboo and so off limits that you would have to be devoid of funny bone not to laugh at that. So that was just some thoughts about the weekend, but I had a great time at Content House, and I'm back. I hope you guys are having a great Christmas season, Advent season. We hosted a birthday party here, a music concert birthday party at our house yesterday, which was lovely. My husband played, his friend Megan, his violinist, played, and we had a great time. We had people come over, and lots of food. I will tell you, I'm off. Some of you know I was trying the nativity fast. I'm off the fast. I did it for a couple of weeks, I think. It was a couple of weeks, a week, 2 weeks. Anyway, it was good. It was good practice, and I started late anyway. I didn't even learn about it until it was already well into the fast itself. But I definitely want to try it again, or try another one maybe at Easter. But being at the content house, I fell off. I'm sorry. And I did eat I did eat vegetables. I went out and cooked vegetables, but I had stuff with butter in it, and I can't remember if I had meat. I think I may have had meat. Anyway, I wanted to show you this before we get started because this is so cool. So my husband, we've been reading a lot about seed oils, and I know there's a lot of people who know a lot more about that than I do, and people I should probably interview about it. But he's become recently very interested in it and trying to eliminate those from our diet. Now, I've known for a long time not to cook with those. I don't cook with canola or any of that stuff. I just cook with olive oil and butter. But in terms of looking at the ingredients on everything you eat, chips, uh, crackers, bread, anything, if you look at the ingredients, you start to realize, oh gosh, they put this stuff in everything. This corn oil, safflower oil, all that stuff. So we're trying to eliminate that from our diet. I've actually heard that if I know of some people who, if they just like people who have been very overweight, verging on obese, who have taken soda out and taken the seed oils out, and they didn't even change anything else, and that was a huge help to them. So read more about it. I'm going to try and find someone to interview about it. I think it would be interesting. But so we've been reading about that. And yes, Therese, you're right. These are the ones we use: olive oil, butter, coconut oil. That's it. Absolutely. And in cooking, I've been doing that for years. But in terms of looking at the ingredients of stuff, I have not always looked at it. Also, avocado oil is good. So I finally found there's a brand of chips that we like, of tortilla chips, that the only one that we found that doesn't use all those other oils. It's a Austin, Texas company, and they use avocado oil, and the chips are delicious. So we're just eating those now if we're gonna have chips. But all this to say, my husband's also he wants us to make our own bread. And some of you know we were in Europe again this summer, and the bread there's so good. I know I've talked about this a lot, but the bread is so good. It tastes different. And when our German friend, her son, her 19-year-old son, came to stay with us after our trip, it was his first time in America, and we were laughing because we took him to the really good HEB in Lubbock, the really good one. If you're in Texas, there's HEBs, and then there's like the fancy we took him to the fancy HEB, and they have that wonderful fresh made bread section. And for us, that's amazing because we're like, this is the best bread you can find. And this 19-year-old looked at all the bread, and he was like, your bread is crap. Like, your bread is terrible. And we were like, hey. So we wanted to try and make some bread. My husband wanted to make some bread as good as what we had in Europe, and he started reading more about the process here in the States for how, even with wheat bread and stuff, how it says enriched. That's what they separate everything out. They take all the vitamins out, then they will like add vitamins back in and say it's been enriched or whatever. And so he's like, screw this, we're going to get a mill. So he got a mill, and while I was at Content House, he started baking. Now he has not stopped. He's downstairs baking right now. This is one of his muffins. This is a blueberry muffin. And so what he's doing, he's buying the wheat berries from a company called Unsifted. And I don't know. I don't have a sponsorship. I don't have a sponsorship with anyone. We just started doing this. But he likes what they're making, so I'll tell you about it. It was called Unsifted, and then he got a mill. And so you just put it, it's pretty simple from what he said. You put in there, you grind your own flour, and then he's baked loaves, rolls, these delicious blueberry muffins. Last night I made the sauce, and he made whole wheat handmade pasta with this flour that and it's delicious. I can't even I can't even tell you. Like, you would think, oh, that's a healthy muffin. It's going to be gross. No, this tastes to me like some of the desserts we had in Germany. It's delicious. It doesn't need too much sugar. It's got sugar in it, but it's like naturally sweet with the blueberries, and you know what's in it because you made it yourself and you made the flour yourself. So there you go. That's what we're baking. He said tomorrow, Tuesday. Usually, if our schedule doesn't get in the way, we try and make Tuesday a date day. So for date night tomorrow, instead of going to the Home Depot or the Costco, we're gonna stay home and we're gonna have a baking party and we're gonna bake a bunch of stuff tomorrow night together. That's gonna be fun. So anyway, if anybody else wants to go on a bread making adventure with us, or maybe you've already been making your own bread forever and you have tips because we're new, drop those tips in the chat. Let me know what you do. I would be happy to learn from you. Okay. Let's see. Dawn says, you wouldn't believe the fresh smell you get from flour you grind yourself. I would not have until now, but you're right. Everything smells great. Keri's Bake Off, everyone. Mark your calendars. Yeah, we're going to be baking. I feel like that's going to be our Christmas presents for people. Let's see. There was another one. Oh, thank you, Pirate Tomsky. I didn't mention this, so thank you to my mod, Pirate. Look at his cute little Santa avatar. Pirate says, Keri is sponsored by you. Here's Keri's link tree. Yes. Thank you to everyone who sponsors the show. You can do so for as little as $1 a month if you like the content here at Deprogrammed, and you can do so in a variety of ways. Patreon, Subscribestar, here at YouTube, we have memberships, or at locals, and there's a ton of links there at the link tree. So thank you for having my back, Pirate, and reminding me. Okay. That's it. I'm sure there were other little knickknack things I was going to talk about, but we should really get into this topic because, man, I have a doozy of a topic today. Some of you may remember a couple years ago, my old podcast, I did a video about Race2Dinner and about the trend. At the time, it was pretty new for some people. Now I feel like pretty much people who watch this show regularly know about this, but it may still be new to some people. Or maybe, here's what I'm really hoping, maybe there are people, white women, who are considering going to one of these dinners or something like it, who find this video. So I would like to talk about it because it may be new to them. Maybe they're trying to find information about it. Yeah. So on the when I talked about this a couple years ago, we talked about one of the most popular ones. It was called Race2Dinner, and it's where woke or social justice, I also use the term social justice, where these women, they basically charge rich white women thousands of dollars to come to a dinner to be told how they are racist. They're basically charging, it's wealthy white women who are paying a lot of money to go through what amounts to a struggle session. If you're familiar with communist struggle sessions in history, you'll know what that means. If you're not, if you're on the left, or maybe you're one of these wealthy white women who thinks you need this sort of dinner or workshop or whatever it's called, look up struggle sessions. You should be familiar with them because that's what you're walking into. It'll help you see how it's similar. So they charge a lot of money. These women pay a lot of money to go to these dinners. Sometimes it's a workshop, it's a conference, and to be told that you are racist. I need you to admit all the ways you're racist. And then they program them. It is a brainwashing kind of seminar or a brainwashing dinner. They program them with some of the very basic, the beliefs of social justice, aka woke ideology. Woke is just what the kids call it, but we used to call it social justice. So they start implanting that in these women, and it is a programming. It is a brainwashing. It is like a cult. I was in this cult. I was in the woke social justice cult for 20 years. I went to one of these seminars way back in the late 90s. I was probably 1997 or so. I was at Duke University, and that's when I first started getting pulled into the woke cult. Of course, I didn't realize that's what was happening at the time. I thought I was learning about racism, and the programming brainwashing session I went to was not a dinner. It was part of a nonprofit that I was involved in called Amnesty International. Amnesty International is supposed to be about human rights, but much like the ACLU, they've been infiltrated by social justice and woke ideology, and so everything they do has become infused with that. For example, back when I was in Amnesty, we used to care about issues that Muslim women faced in other countries. We used to care about uh, female genital mutilation. We used to care about, we saw those things as being anti-human rights. And over time, I think Amnesty International has pulled away from any focusing on anything that has to do with Muslim women because they've become so infused with social justice, and Muslims are in one of the groups they call oppressed. And so there's no criticism ever lobbied at groups that they call oppressed, right? So anyway, I was in Amnesty International back then, and I went to Florida for a convention with representatives from Amnesty International from all these different colleges. And I was part of a dismantling racism training. And it was a struggle session, looking back on it, not knowing anything about struggle sessions at the time when I walked into it. It was a struggle session. It was, I would say, probably one of the early, like rudimentary, it was an early version of the kind of thing you're getting at Race2Dinner. And it was where I first learned the woke cult redefinitions. So woke, social justice, like any cult, they're very concerned with controlling your language. That's how cults or abusive individuals, that's how they control the way you think, if they can control the words you use. And so that one of the things they do, they come up with new words like mansplaining or white fragility, like new phrases and things, right? Like white privilege. But they also redefine, this one's really important, they redefine words that already exist, that already have a definition that we've accepted for hundreds of years. They redefine those. So one of the most important words that they redefine is racism. And I, back in 1997, whatever it was, that was the first time I learned the social justice or woke redefinition of racism and sexism. They say racism is not what you have always thought it was, what it is obvious on its face, which is to have a prejudice against another race, to believe that another race is morally or inferior. It's to base your judgments on a person's race, what racial group they belong to. They say, no, that's not racism. That's not racism's not judging and treating people differently on the basis of race. No. The real definition of racism is prejudice plus power. So they say it depends on what racial group you're in, whether or not you can be racist. It's so funny because that's a racist thing to say. But like at the time when you're learning it, especially if you're young, you're liberal. Is this hat crooked? Somebody said, okay, here, that's fine. Whatever. They say that racism is dependent on the race of the person either experiencing it or pushing it, dealing it out, dishing it out. That's a racist thing to say. It is not racist. It is not dependent on your race. So they are teaching people that, woke ideology, social justice ideology says the best way to look at the world is as a competition for power between identity groups, and that all of human history can be viewed through this lens, and it should be viewed through this lens as a competition for power among identity groups. And that throughout history, that some of these identity groups have held and maintained more power than others, and so we have to put all these identity groups into these oppressed or oppressor categories, into these marginalized or privileged categories. They also use those words. And so they say, for example, in the category of race, that white people are the oppressor or the privileged, and people of color, they lump everyone together. People of color are the oppressed or the marginalized. And so they say it's impossible to be racist to a white person because a white person is in the powerful group. Whoa. Now, if you start talking about individualism, they're not individualists. This is not liberal. This social justice and woke is not liberal. If you're on the left and you're bumping into this stuff and you're confused about it, the reason they don't deal in what about this individual? Look at this. Let's take this white person here. How is it possible to be racist towards them? What if they have a very powerful, rich black boss who doesn't like white people and treats them a certain way just because they're white? And is that not racism? They will say, no, it's not racism. Even though they're being judged and treated differently and discriminated against because they're white, they will say that's not racism. Why? Because they don't view people as individuals. It's not individualism. It's not liberalism. It's collectivism. They view people as groups. You know what else is collectivist? White supremacy. Like, they are racist, just like white supremacists. They view people as group members. And they teach people who are coming into the woke cult, who don't realize they're coming into a cult. They teach them, you have to do this. You have to judge and treat people as members of racial groups. And so they'll say it's impossible to be racist towards white people. They also say it's impossible for a person of color to be racist towards anyone because they don't have any power. And you're like, but what about this individual? They have a lot of power. They're like, no, it doesn't. That's not racism. It doesn't matter. They want to redefine words, and then they'll tell you, well, you. I'm like, well, what do we call that then? When a very powerful, rich black person is discriminating against a white person, and they have the individual power to do so, that's not racism, and they're doing it because the person's white. That's not racism. They say, no, that's just prejudice. It's very convoluted, but if you think about why they're doing this, why are they doing this? It's to change the way you think. It's not just about changing the language itself, it's about changing the way you think. They have now successfully programmed younger generations to believe that it is impossible to be racist towards a certain race. It's impossible to be sexist towards a certain sex. They've implanted this ridiculous lie, racist lie, into the heads of young people. And what might possibly go wrong with that? What could possibly go wrong with that? I always like to ask someone if they're caught up in the throes of woke, because they say we have to do this. We have to be racist until we've reached equality. They don't say be racist because, again, they've redefined racism. But that's, if you look at what they're saying we have to do, it's racist. They say we have to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race until we reach equality. So I like to ask them, how are you measuring that? What's the end goal that we can observe and we can measure so that we'll know we're there? They don't know. They've never thought about that. That's a good question to ask them, because if they still have a bit of an open mind left, they will think about that. And they may have never been asked that question before. And then I also like to ask them, okay, let's say we hit some end goal that you can come up with, a measurable end goal, and we know we've reached equality now. Now that we're all equal and have equal amounts of power by group, now it is possible to be racist towards a white person because we've reached equality, right? And we all have equal power, right? Okay, so now let's say we've reached that place. And you would agree, once we reach that place, it is now possible to be racist towards a white person. Now, how do you deprogram all the generations of kids that you have taught that it's impossible to be racist towards a certain racial group? How do you deprogram them now? How do you undo that now? They have no idea. They've never thought about it. Those are two good questions to ask. You can do the same thing with sexism because they have the same attempted redefinition of sexism, prejudice plus power. So I know I've talked about this before. I've defined all this before. I just wanted to bring it up again because I do hope that some well-meaning, maybe hopefully well-meaning white women who might be considering going to one of these unlearning, dismantling racism courses or dinners, I hope they find this video. So I wanted to lay that out for them. Kimba says we did reach that place. Yeah, we did. I don't usually say that to them. I want to hear what they say and I want to make them think. I want to help them think. But yeah, we reached that place. We reached that place when we got rid of discrimination in the law, racial discrimination in the law. And you know what got us to that place? Liberalism, individualism, not collectivism, not racism, which is what they're pushing, social justice, woke, none of that stuff got us to a place of equality. It will not ever get us to a place of equality. But again, when if you are trying to talk to someone and get them to think about this stuff, don't tell them immediately like what you think. Listen, be a good listener. Ask them what they think. Get them to think. Hey, little Ragamuffins here. What up, girl? Good to see you. Okay. We're going to look at one of these. So as I mentioned a couple years ago, we talked about Race2Dinner, and one of the women who is a part of Race2Dinner, it's two women who started this particular one. Now there's lots of these. There's one in my Georgetown, Texas, a local one, and it's called Courageous Conversations. And they have these Courageous Conversations chapters all over the US. And there's a Facebook group for it in Georgetown and everything. And it is the same thing. It is some woman of color. It's for some reason it's always a woman. I have ideas on why that is. But some local woman of color who is woke and thoroughly social justice, a con artist, a grifter, someone who has realized she can use this ideology to exert power over others, to get money from others, or to get fame. One of those three things. Some local con artist grifter starts a chapter, and I call them, my friend Gracie West calls them the high priestesses of the movement. So woke, you can think of woke or social justice like a religion, or a cult. It's very cult-like, but sometimes people get thrown because there's not like one charismatic leader like there is in the kind of cults that have that we all know about because of popular culture. Like there's not, the one Jim Jones or David Koresh or whoever we think of when we think of a cult leader, Charles Manson, what have you. There are lots of leaders, local leaders, and I think of them as high priests or priestesses of the movement. And in your town, if there is a woke social justice group, there's going to be a local leader, one or two in that group. And in Georgetown, there's a couple of them, and they run these groups, and the groups are full of, the target is white women. The groups are full of white women who are coming there to feel like a good person. They want to be a good person, or some of them really want to be a good person. Some of them want to be seen as a good person. And I would say most of them are middle class to upper middle class to rich white women. And they are the prime target for this kind of grift, for this kind of con artistry, for this woke kind of unlearning racism con artistry. So there's a ton of these groups. One of the biggest ones, most popular ones, is this Race2Dinner. And there has been, I'm going to add, let's see, I'm going to put up an article just to give you a little background on Race2Dinner, and then we're going to watch some video footage. So this is from The Guardian. Why liberal white women pay a lot of money to learn over dinner how they're racist. That's the title. And I have to give it, this is from 2020. This is from 3 years ago. I'm telling you, this has been happening for a long time, and they're still making lots of money doing this. I'm going to give it up for The Guardian here because I'm a little surprised that they were honest about this, who the target is. The target of these groups are liberal white women. It's women who are already on the left, who are white. I would go a step further, like I said, and say they're at least middle class, if not very wealthy. And that's the target of this grift. Okay, here's a picture of the two founders of Race2Dinner. This is Saira Rao and Regina Jackson. Some of you know Saira Rao from Twitter. She is very active on Twitter. And the funny thing about her is that her posts are so racist, so not where it's not even a question. They're so explicitly racist against white people that many people always think she's a parody account. They don't, you know how there are these really funny comedy accounts now that make fun of and in person pretend to be a social justice or woke person, and they're so over the top, and they use humor to reveal a truth. They use humor to show how ridiculous and racist this ideology is, or how ridiculous and sexist this ideology is, by putting it in very explicit terms and making the racism very obvious. She does that, but for real. She's not a parody account. She verges. I mean, I know she looks like a parody because it's so over the top. You're reading it like, how could someone say this kind of stuff and be real and be this open about it? One of her tweets always go viral. One of her tweets went viral this weekend, and I saw it a couple places. I saw it in my friend Joseph Massey, the poet. I saw he had also reposted it. Here, look at this. This is one of them. And this isn't even the worst. I've seen terrible racist things from her. I'm sure you have if you know who she is. Yeah. Simon says Saira Rao is deranged. She is deranged. Hateful. And you're like, really? This works? People pay a lot of money to get told to go. They give a lot of money to a racist to learn how to not be a racist. Are there really that many suckers out there? There's a lot of suckers out there. Okay. Look, this is one of her tweets. She says, she said this yesterday. White women despise unafraid, smart, competent black and brown women way more than they hate their abusive, loathsome white husbands. What? There's so much racism baked into this. It's like, if you said this about any other group, you would be able to see it, leftists. If you're on the left, if you're well-meaning, you found this video somehow, like, can you imagine saying this about black people or Latino people or Asian people? Like, this is a very racist thing to say. We all have abusive, loathsome white husbands, and we hate them. And we hate unafraid, smart, competent black and brown women. No, we don't. We hate con artists. I hate con artists who pretend to be unafraid, smart, competent, and competent. You're pretty competent at ripping people off. I'll give you that. You're competent at grifting. It's not that you're competent that causes me to look down at you. It is that you are a person of low character and morals, and you are a predator who takes advantage of people, and you make money off of gullible people while pushing an evil racist ideology into the world. If you were a con artist if you were a snake oil salesman who's like selling some medicine that doesn't work, I think I would despise you less than selling an evil ideology and pushing it into the world, and that's how you make your money. It's like it's two evils wrapped in one. Anyway, she continues. She goes, and nothing makes white women angrier then when Black and brown women don't want to be their friend, being rejected by us is the worst offense known to white womankind. Okay, so I was laughing because I was like, look, nobody wants to be this woman's friend. However, that's not true. That is not true. A lot of the targets for her con artistry, they do desperately want to be her friend. Friend, I'm going to put that in quotes because I don't think these kind of people have friends. They have people that they use. They have allies. Social justice and woke people have allies. But it's not true friendship. It's not one of there's like the 3 kinds of friendships that Aristotle talks about. I guess you could say it's the one where you're both getting and giving something from one another, but it's not really even that. I don't think there's any affection there. Um, it's sort of like using people the way a narcissist uses people. Do you know what I mean? Like, anyway, we're gonna get further into this, but before I forget, I will say this. She says about them wanting to be nothing makes them angrier than when Black and brown women don't want to be their friend. Here's something about the kind of women that Race2Dinner takes advantage of. As I mentioned, there's lots of these different groups. I was in a group on Facebook that I'm blanking on the name of this one. It wasn't Courageous Conversations, but it was something similar. It was started by a white woman on the left who, after Trump was elected, she said her goal was creating this organization, this group was to be able to have to start conversations with people on the right and have a dialogue going. That was also my goal. That's when I started Civility Dinners. So this woman, Karen Tamaris, I think is her name. She found me somewhere. She found something I wrote and she was like, hey, you should come join my group. We have similar goals. So I had joined her group and she writes. She's a writer. She has this group going. But I noticed in her group, it actually she wasn't teaching people how to see Trump voters as human or to have real conversations with them. She was like, the group, I don't know if she even realized this, but it was really about trying to convince people on the right and Trump voters that they were wrong. And it was really about trying to convert them and about trying to bring them into woke or woke light. And it wasn't really about dialogue. And that I saw this over and over in her group. I was like, you're coming into it from this moral, intellectual high ground, and you're not having real conversations with people on the right. You're telling them what they should think. It was weird. Anyway, at some point in this group, Karen had gone to one of these dismantling racism things and she wrote about it because she had a bad experience. And she was sharing it with her group, which had now grown very large. And it was a struggle session she was describing. And what I remember of the post was that they were going around in a circle and they're supposed to explain how they're racist. Not, are you racist? How are you racist? This is what woke believes. They believe all white people are racist. And you have to interrogate yourself and figure it out, right? So she starts explaining that she runs this nonprofit, this group she started, and they were like, do you have any employees who are Black, who are people of color? And she's like, well, no, I don't have any. We don't have enough money to have employees. We don't pay anyone. But I do have one of my board members, or one of the volunteers, he's Black. And they're like, oh, so you're using unpaid Black labor. And like, it didn't matter what she said, it was going to be your races. It's like, and she's like, but I don't pay anyone. We can't afford to pay anyone. But one of those people you can't pay is Black, huh? But earlier they were saying, do you have anyone working with you who's Black? Yeah, I do. And you see what I'm saying? It's a Kafka trap. You can't get out of it. You are racist no matter what the answer is. And so, yes, instead of a win-win, says John, it's a lose-lose. And they continued to berate her. I forget the other particulars of the story, but they basically called her racist. She started crying. Her tears are now white tears. That's evidence of racism and white fragility. And she just wanted to open it up to discussion for all the people she had in her group. And they start piling on her. And they start telling her she's being too defensive, and I was like, you created this monster. You created this woke Frankenstein monster. And in the end, I can't really remember what happened with her. I think she ended up taking the knee eventually and being like, "You guys are all right." I think so. That's what happened there. And quit trying to talk about what was wrong about it. I eventually got kicked out of her group because because I said what I thought. I was like, "This is all crap. You're still pushing crap on people, and what they did to you was crap." But one of the things that came up in her group, it was either as a result of that story that she shared or another person sharing a story, is that the group, like a lot of these woke groups, it's mostly white women. And a lot of them were sharing experiences. There was a post by one, and she was asking for advice. And I assume this is the kind of white women who go to things like Race2Dinner and pay lots of money. This white woman said, "I just want some help making friends with women of color. I don't have any women who are friends of color, and when I meet a woman of color, I'm not sure what I can talk to her about," because she said, get this, she goes, "This woman just moved to my town and she's Black, and I would like for her to be my friend. And I was going to ask her, where are you from? But I can't ask her that because, as I've learned in this group, that's a microaggression, a racist microaggression. But I would ask a white woman that, but I can't ask her that because she's Black and that's racist. And then I was going to ask her this, but I can't ask that." She had this whole thing of like, here are all the microaggressions I can't say. And she's like, "So how do I become friends with this Black woman?" And yeah, exactly, little ragamuffin. "Oh, never compliment her hair. I would like to compliment her hair. It's really beautiful, but I know that's a racist microaggression." And wow. And the advice that this white woman was getting was terrible. It was from other white women in the woke cult and from the grifters at the top, the women of color in the group grifting, giving terrible advice as well, which is more about more self-flagellation. And I just wanted to say this to that woman. I said this when I talked about this a couple years ago in that video. The reason you can't make friends with women of color is because you are viewing them as women of color. Primarily, when you see them, you're not saying, your brain, you have been programmed to such a degree through all this woke shit that you see them as like a different species than you. It is racist. You are in a racist cult. This woke social justice stuff is racist. All these people you're getting advice from, they're racist. They're telling you to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. That's racist. They are making you into a racist. Maybe you already were, and that's why this appealed to you, but they're making you into a worse racist. And so you see a woman of color, and instead of just seeing a human and interacting like a normal person, you're like, "There's a woman of color, must make her my friend." How do I get? First of all, you're probably coming off as really thirsty and desperate and gross. Like, ugh, so that's probably there because you really want to make friends with a woman of color. It's like you're collecting them like they're Pokemon or something. I've got to get that one. I've got to get that one in my bag, right? I don't have one yet. And then that's really gonna turn people off if they're normal. Maybe they're not normal. Maybe it's a woke Black woman that you've run into, and she's a narcissist, and she can feel the desperation from you, and there's someone I could take advantage of. Maybe she's someone like Saira Rao or Regina Jackson who run Race2Dinner, and she allows you to get somewhat close to her and uses you for whatever ends she's going to use you for. Um, that's the kind of white women who want to be friends with people like Saira Rao, and that's the kind of white women Saira Rao is friends with. Um, but if she's a normal Black woman and she's not a narcissist or con artist or trying to take advantage, if she's normal and you come up to her like, you know, "I'm gonna make this Black woman my friend," you're gonna turn her off, and rightly so, because you're being weird and gross and desperate and thirsty, and people can smell that on you, like, what does this person want from me? So there's your number one problem. Okay. Number two problem, you're listening to a bunch of racists, woke people, social justice people who are racist, who are telling you to behave in racist ways, and they've brainwashed you to such a degree that you have a little sensor in your head now that censors things that you would ask a white person, like normal things that humans ask each other, and you run it through a filter now and are like, oh, and you're hamstrung because you can't ask any normal question. You just said that if that were a white woman, a good opening question to meet someone is, where are you from? It is. Where are you from? It's a great question. How's the weather? Da, da, da. Do you have kids? Whatever. These are normal things that normal humans ask each other. But you have listened to racists who've told you that it is a racist microaggression to ask a person of color where they're from, or to compliment their hair, or whatever. They've given you a whole list, and the list is always growing and changing, and you're trying to keep up with it. And it is preventing you from being a human to this woman, and to treating her like a human, like a fully formed human, like the fully formed adult human she is. You are behaving in a racist way when you censor yourself and don't treat her like you would a white person. Again, for people who've never been in the woke world, have never been on the left, this is going to sound like common sense, but I want this video to be out there for people on the left who find this. I'm talking to you. Why would you give money to and listen to people who tell you that the way to not be a racist white woman is to treat Black people, women differently? Why would you listen to that? It's absurd. It is turning you into a racist. I'm trying to decide if I should tell this story or not, because this is a friend and someone I like, but she's in that leftist world, or she's in it tangentially, and she's very well-meaning. She's a good person. But this ideology, sometimes it comes out in weird ways because of the people she listens to and the assumptions that she has. I'm just going to share a part of it. You guys know my Wednesday night co-host, Mystery Chris. Okay. We had a party. He told me, came out of the bathroom. He was like, I gotta tell you about something weird that happened. He came out of the bathroom. He's Black. He came out of the bathroom, and one of our friends, very well-meaning, good person, white woman, says to him, you don't belong here. And he was like, what? And we realized, in him telling me this story, we realized what was happening. That night we were playing country music. She doesn't like country music. I think she assumed he doesn't like country music because he's Black. I don't know. But she was trying to bond with him from the place of having probably listened to a lot of woke people who've told her this is what Black people are like, or Black people are like this. And so it was sort of, we think what she was trying to say was, I'm like you. I'm like, she was putting him on a pedestal. You're a Black person. This country music is beneath you. I'm like you. Like that's the subtext. Right. And she was like, and so, because she finally said, well, I don't like this kind of music either. And he's like, but I do like this kind of music or something. And it was, it was weird. And I think even if I were to talk to her about it, she would think it was a little awkward, maybe. And again, I love this person, not a bad person, but has probably listened to, like a lot of the white people who I hope find this video, has listened to this ideology that tells you to look at Black people differently and to talk to them differently and to assume certain things about them. And what happens is that you make these assumptions that you're not making those same assumptions about white people, and you're making assumptions that may not be true. and you're treating them differently. But it took him a second to even figure it out. He thought she was a racist, not the woke kind of racist. He thought she was the I don't like black people kind of racist, because she was like, you don't belong here. like, like my point is, this is a funny kind of example, but the point is, either way, you were, no matter what kind of racist you are, if you think that he's black and therefore he shouldn't be at the party, or he's black and therefore he's better than everyone and he shouldn't be at the party, either way, you are treating him differently, and it brings you full circle to racism. Do you see what I'm saying? Woke ideology, white supremacy, you're not that different. And so you have this weird encounter because you're assuming certain things about a person because they're black. And woke has told you to do that. And if you are a good-hearted, well-intentioned person who's in the woke ideology, I'm just saying, listen, and you found this video, you can avoid weird situations like that by, here's the secret. You don't have to pay me $2,500 like you do these Race2Dinner con artists. I'm telling you for free. Treat black people like normal humans. I know, it's the secret. Just treat them like normal. Don't be a weirdo. Don't assume certain things. When you see them, like the white woman in the message board I was mentioning, the Facebook group, and she was like, this black woman moved to town. How can I be friends with her? You got to get rid of that. You got to get that out of you. You can't go into situations like that. That is a racist thing to go in and be like, I need this person to be my friend. Why? Because they're black. What? You're looking at them differently. You're treating them differently. It's not the answer. Whatever you're doing, it's not working. This is really funny. Rib Rascal, wear the self-loathing woke white women hat. I'm saving that. I've got to tell Mystery Chris about that comment, because he loves that quote from Blazing Saddles. And here, I'm just going to do a couple of super chats real quick. Before the super chats, there's a chat from Vermont Chatter who says, I know I miss Mystery Chris, and I can't wait for pop culture to come back. Me too. If you're watching, Mystery Chris, we love you, we miss you, and we hope you're able to come back soon. If you guys pray, say a prayer for Mystery Chris, for all the stuff I won't get into specifics, but all the stuff he's dealing with right now. And okay, super chats, here we go. Pirate Tomsky says, Keri swore, tip jar. £2. £2. Thank you, Pirate. Did I swear? If I did, I forgot. Thank you, though. Wicked Psyched for $5. Thank you so much. Do they use a tint meter or check your lineage to determine what color you are? Wicked Psyched, right? No, they just look at you and they assume. That's the other thing. They just assume. But that is a funny question, especially when it gets into all their different rules about white privilege and white fragility. And it's like, what if you're half white? Do you have half fragility? Do you have half privilege? Like, how does all that work? Scott McKenzie became a YouTube member. Thank you, Scott. Good to see you. Good to see you again, I should say. Welcome. And Pirate Tomsky says, welcome to the channel membership, Scott. Thank you, Pirate. I'm so glad you're here today. Okay. Mystery Chris is okay. He's okay. Yes, he has just a lot of family stuff and life happening, and he is fine. But I will let him, when he comes back, talk about if he wants to or not. But I miss him. That's all, and I know you guys do too. Chris is coming back as Christine. That's what's going on. Mr. Chris is actually taking time off to become Christine. And no, that's not happening. Okay. That was a little caveat I needed to do about the kind of white women who are fair game, easy targets for these kind of woke grifters. It's the kind of white women who oftentimes they're, as I said, middle to upper class. They have a lot of disposable income. They maybe don't have any friends of color, and they think that that's evidence of something wrong with them, and they desperately want friends of color. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes these are white women who have racial prejudice, who are racist in some ways, but they don't want to be. White women like Robin DiAngelo. Robin DiAngelo is another one of these woke con artist grifters. She's the one who wrote White Fragility. And she, in her book, talks about how she went to a work picnic or something, and there was like a table of black women and a table of white women, and she panicked because she thought she was going to have to sit with a black woman. It's like, dude, you are a racist. That's you. Quit saying all white people are like that. but that's you. And so I think some of the women who pay for this, they are those kind of, maybe they didn't grow up around black people, or they do hold some kind of racial prejudice, or they feel uncomfortable in whatever way, and they think if I pay $2,500 to this Race to Dinner thing, I'll learn how to be a better person and get rid of that prejudice and make friends with black people, and those are the targets. John Thomas, thank you for the super chat for $5, says, unrelated, but you should have a conversation with Benjamin Boyce. He was at Evergreen State in Washington State when that insanity went. I have, actually. I interviewed Benjamin on my old channel a couple years ago, and then he more recently interviewed me on his channel, but it's been a year or two at least. And he interviewed me. I think he was the first person really to ask me about my belief in God. It was kind of new for me to talk about that at the time. But yeah, I love that dude. We've talked about doing something again. Maybe it's time. I should get in touch with him and see if we can have another conversation. I really like him, and I think he's funny on Twitter. He's very funny. Andrew says, I hear that Saira Rao, one of the founders of Race2Dinner, actually comes from quite a high caste Indian family. That would not surprise me at all. A lot of the people who push woke and the ones who benefit from it the most, and who are the grifting kind, the ones who get power, fame, or money from it, they are very wealthy a lot of times. Look at Peggy McIntosh. Peggy McIntosh is the white woman who coined the phrase white privilege in the 80s. She's the one who wrote the invisible white knapsack, which is where that phrase was coined. And look how much that has spread, and how many other parts of social justice and woke ideology were built on that. She was super wealthy, like in the 1% of the 1%. And a lot of these people are. Look at Marx himself. Marx came from a wealthy family. This is woke. Social justice is an ideology of the elite. It benefits the elite. That always happens. If you have division, if you're creating chaos, if you're injecting racism and chaos into the world, you're benefiting from it, you're at the top. Okay. Yes, says Andrew. Yes, exactly. Just like most socialists come from wealth. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to continue this article, and then we're going to watch a little bit of stuff. So here are the two con artists, the grifters, who started Race2Dinner, Saira Rao and Regina Jackson. Okay. I'm going to read some of the article. A growing number of women are paying to confront their privilege and racism at dinners that cost $2,500. You know what? A lot of this, as somebody just pointed out, is it's not related to their race, it's related to their money. A lot of wealthy people some of them I think feel a degree of guilt or something about being wealthy. And in the case of Peggy McIntosh, who coined the phrase white privilege, she took a lot of things that were actually a result of her having a lot of money. And then she said, these are a result of me being white, and this is what it's like for all white people. And it's like, no, dude, that's a result of you having a lot of those things are a result of you having money, wealth privilege. Okay. So it's really funny that these wealthy, privileged women are trying to confront their wealthy privilege by going to an elitist, wealthy, privileged dinner that only they can afford. Like, it's so stupid. Okay. Freshly made pasta is drying on the wooden banisters. Can you guys see this? Should I make it a little larger? Okay, I think this is good. Freshly made pasta is drying on the wooden banisters lining the hall of a beautiful home in Denver, Colorado. Fox hunting photos decorate the walls in a room full of books. A fire is burning, and downstairs, a group of liberal white women have gathered around a long wooden table to admit how racist they are. Quote, recently, I have been driving around seeing a black person and having an assumption that they are up to no good, says Allison Goobser. Immediately after that, I'm like, that's no good. This is human. This is a human just doing their thing. Why do I think that? Let me pause here for a second. If you are driving around and seeing a normal black person doing normal black people things or normal people things, and you're thinking they're up to no good, yes, you have some kind of racist attitude or racial prejudice. Yes. But if you are seeing a black person and it's not because they're black, it's because there are other red flags, like in that video that we watched of the woke white social justice guy who was stabbed to death, and we watched the video footage of it happening where a guy walked by him, a black guy walked by him, and it was 3 or 4 in the morning, and he was behaving erratically, and he was yelling things, and he was pushing over bicycles or whatever. And this woke social justice guy thought it was a good idea to stand up and walk himself and his fiance closer to that crazy guy, and he got stabbed. If you are seeing red flags, it is not racist to listen to those red flags and to go the other way or to make an assumption. It is not. I did a whole episode about this. When I first got brainwashed into woke ideology at that Amnesty International conference, when I first learned about, racism is actually prejudice plus power, etc. I'm not going to tell the whole story again. I told it in that video. I'll link it below. But right after I got back from that brainwashing seminar, Dismantling Racism, a friend and I got held up by a black guy at night walking back to campus from a Mexican restaurant. And here's what's crazy. I'll just tell the one part of the story. It wouldn't have happened if I had listened to my gut, because he was coming towards us at the end of the road. It was late at night. He didn't seem to be fully balanced. And he said, I'm going to F you up. He said the F word, I'm going to fuck you up. And I kept walking towards him. I kept walking towards him because I had just gone through this woke brainwashing that told me that if I have a red flag about someone who happens to be black, that it's racist and I shouldn't listen to it. And that's crazy. But the rest of the night, the rest of that encounter of being held up by this dude, thinking I was going to die or possibly get raped, none of that would have happened if I had listened to my gut and gone the other way when he said, I'm going to F you up. It may seem like an extreme example, but I point this out because one of the dangerous things they're doing with these brainwashing seminars is they're telling people not to listen to their gut instinct. They're saying your gut instinct is inherently racist and sexist. Don't listen to it if the person who's triggering your gut instinct is black or trans or a woman or what have you. Don't listen to it. So, but I don't have enough information here to say. It could be she's looking at a black person in a business suit going to work and is like, that person's up to no good. In which case I'm like, wow, you're crazy racist. Like, yeah, you need something, not this dinner, but you need something. Okay. This is Race2Dinner. A white woman volunteers to host a dinner in her home for 7 other white women, often strangers, perhaps acquaintances. Each dinner costs $2,500. By the way, that was 3 years ago. It's more expensive now, I'm pretty sure. We'll look it up. Each dinner costs $2,500, which can be covered by a generous host or divided among guests. A frank discussion is led by co-founders Regina Jackson, who is black, and Saira Rao, who identifies as Indian American. Oh, she identifies as Indian American? They started Race2Dinner to challenge liberal white women to accept their racism, however subconscious. Quote, if you did this in a conference room, they'd leave, Rao says, but wealthy white women have been taught never to leave the dinner table, end quote. Rao and Jackson believe white liberal women are the most receptive audience because they are open to changing their behavior. No, would be better written. Rao and Jackson know that white liberal white women are the most susceptible demographic for a target base to grift off of, to con, because they have the expendable cash, disposable income, and they are part of the left, which has already been infiltrated with this false idea that all white people are inherently racist, and that the best way to look at our culture is as a white supremacist patriarchy. Like all the seeds are already there. And I was about to say this, but I'm glad they say this. The target audience, the target demographic for these kinds of con artists, the Race2Dinner ones, the courageous conversation ones, all of them, the target audience is white leftist or white liberal women with disposable income. It is not right wingers. It's not because they know they can't get you guys with this nonsense. They're not going to be able. You're not a good target. Any con artist knows, like, they have, like, this is the pool that they're swimming in, that the shark is swimming in. Like, these are the people I can separate from their money, or uh become famous on the backs of them listening to me, or gain power over them on the backs of them listening to me. Like, they know that is their demographic. Wealthy, middle class, white, liberal women. They're not trying to do, you would think, right? If they're like, oh, this world's so crazy racist, and like, and the right wingers are so racist, we're going to figure out how to talk to them. And like, no, they're just trying to make money and get famous and get power. And this is the demographic to target. So it says they don't bother with the 53% of white women who voted for Trump. White men, they feel, are similarly a lost cause. Yeah, white men are not going to part with their money as easily, at least not. They will part with money. They will not part with money to people like you. They're not as gullible as the women. They're not. Some of them get pulled into woke by their wives or their girlfriends. Yes, a lot of times. But woke is primarily a white woman thing. That's who moves into it, picks up the belief system first. Here's a quote. White men are never going to change anything. If they were, they would have done it by now, Jackson says. Okay. Yeah, that's why you don't try to target them. White women, on the other hand, are uniquely placed to challenge racism because of their proximity to power and wealth, Jackson says. Quote, if they don't hold these positions themselves, the white men in power are often their family, friends, and partners. It seems unlikely anyone would voluntarily go to a dinner party in which they would be asked one by one, what was a racist thing you did recently, by two women of color, before appetizers are served. But Jackson and Rao have hardly been able to take a break since they started these dinners in the spring of 2019. So far, 15 dinners have been held in big cities across the US. The women who sign up for these dinners are not who most would see as racist. They are well-read and well-meaning. Yeah, we just said that. They are mostly Democrats. Yeah. Some have adopted Black children. Yeah. Many have partners who are people of color. Some have been doing work towards inclusivity and diversity for decades. But they acknowledge they also have unchecked biases. They are there because they know they are part of the problem and they want to be part of the solution, says Jess Campbell Swanson before the dinner starts. Campbell Swanson comes across as an overly keen college student applying for a prestigious internship. She can go on for days about her work as a political consultant, but when it comes to talking about racism, she chokes. Quote, I want to hire people of color. not because I want to be a white savior. I have explored my need for validation. I'm working through that. Yeah, I'm struggling, she stutters before finally giving up. You know why you're having trouble speaking here, lady? Because you're already in the cult. There are things you can and can't say. You have already been programmed, and your brain is not working correctly. You are filtering things. And look at this part. She's already picked this up. Somewhere along the way in all of her work, anti-racism work, they've told her again, you always lose, just like we talked about earlier. You can't win no matter what you do or say. So they want these white women to go out in the world and be racist and to only hire black people, for example, or only hire people of color, or to do, to give up some of their privilege and da 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 da. They want them to be racist. They want them to treat people differently on the basis of race. But at the same time, they chastise them and say, you're trying to be a white savior if you do that. This isn't about you and you being a white savior. Like, they lose both ways. They lose. And so she's learning the right things to say. The reality is, lady, they are programming you to behave as a white savior. They are programming you to behave that way. They do want you to behave that way and to view people of color differently, as some protected, fragile group that you can't even ask, like, where you're from, that you can't treat the same as a white person. They want you to view black people as, like, not as an individual, but to view a black person as, like, a member of an oppressed group, and to assume all these things about them, and to assume they can't do and they can't get ahead. They want you to assume these things. They are turning you into a white savior, but they want you to say the right things and say, "Look, you just said it. Not because I want to be a white savior." They're messing with your head, lady, and gaslighting you. Okay. Across from Campbell Swanson, Morgan Richards admits she recently did nothing when someone patronizingly commended her for adopting her two black children as though she had saved them. Quote, "What I went through to be a mother, I didn't care if they were black," she says, opening a window for Rao to challenge her. Quote, "So you admit it is stooping low to adopt a black child?" No! She said race, she didn't care. She didn't care about race. And now look, but that is racist because that assumes that you think being black is worse than being white. And you don't, and you are so good, you don't care. That's not what she said. She said race wasn't a factor. When you go into adopt and they're like, do you want a boy or a girl? Do you have preferences? Do you want a white child? Do you want a child the same race as your family or not? And a person who says, I don't care, they just want to adopt a child. That's what she's saying. I just wanted to adopt a child. And Rao is like, oh, but you're a racist. As more confessions like this are revealed, Rao and Jackson seem to press those that they think can take it, while empathizing with those who can't. Quote, "Well done for recognizing that," Jackson says to soothe one woman. "We are all part of the problem. We have to get comfortable with that to become part of the solution." Carbonara is heaped onto plates, and a sense of self-righteousness seems to wash over the 8 white women. Yes, they have shown up, admitted their wrongdoing, and are willing to change. Don't they deserve a little pat on the back? Look at this cult book they're reading, White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. They are paying all this money not only to convince others that they're good people and they're doing the work and they're not racist, but to convince themselves. Erica Ryder raises her tattooed forearm to her face in despair of all the racism she has witnessed as a social worker, and then laments how a white friend always ends a phone call with "love you long time." so, so what? That is not racist. It is funny. This is going back to the beginning when I was talking about comedy and stuff. If that triggers you, first of all, I think for most people who would say that that triggers them or they say, "Oh, that's racist," they've learned that. They don't naturally think that or feel that, or they've learned that they're supposed to react that way. They are performing when they pretend like that's offended. But for the very tiny fraction of people it actually does offend, there's something wrong with you psychologically. Like, you are too fragile. You maybe have a personality disorder or something that is causing you to take things too personally, but that's a you problem you need to work on if that actually offends you, and I don't think it's that many people. I think it's like a percentage of percent maybe. I think most people, especially leftists and white leftists, when they overreact to stuff like that, they're performing. They have learned this is how I show I'm one of the good ones is I show that I'm the kind of white person who thinks that's wrong to say, "Love you long time." And I love that they turn it back on her, though. "And what is your racism, Erica?" Rao interrupts, refusing to let her off the hook. The mood becomes tense. Another woman adds, "I don't know you, Erica, but you strike me as being really in your head. Everything I'm hearing is from the neck up." What? Ryder, a single mother, retreats before defending herself. Quote, "I haven't read all the books. I'm new to this." Cult. This is cult language. "I haven't read all the books yet." You're in a struggle session, you're being chastised, you haven't read the cult literature yet, you don't know the right things to say yet. You don't know to say yet that I only wanna hire black people, but I don't it's not because I wanna be a white savior. Like, you don't know. Now they're gonna talk about Saira Rao just a little bit. "A lot of people hate Saira Rao." Quote, "The American flag makes me sick," read a recent tweet of hers. I told you her tweets are disgusting. Another quote, "White folks, before telling me that your Indian husband or wife or friend or colleague doesn't agree with anything I say about racism or thinks I'm crazy, please Google token, internalized oppression, and gaslighting." Something about that tweet, by the way, these are the caveats they give in the cult. I was in the cult. Um, they say they speak for Black people, Indian people, women, trans people, gay people. They don't speak for any of these groups, but they say it. And nothing is more threatening to them than someone who's in one of those groups who doesn't agree with them. And they have to have caveats. And here's another great anecdote, a great example. In the Courageous Conversation group that I'm in Georgetown, Texas, which is another one of these uh, kind of woke white women cults that's led by women of color, these high priestesses, these grifters, these con artists in the movement, and all these supposedly well-meaning white women in there trying to learn how to, and they're all liberals, how to get rid of their racism, right? In that group, there was a white woman who was new to this, and she had just learned one of their rules, which is one of their rules in woke is white people, because you're privileged, because you have power, you're in a group that has power, you need to shut up and listen. And so if you disagree with something a black person says, or a woke black person says, if you disagree with anything a woke person says, and you happen to be white, they will tell you to shut up. It's not your place to sit down and listen to black people and listen to what they have to say, that it's your racism telling you, it's your white privilege telling you that you have a right to an opinion that's different than the woke opinion. Okay, so this white woman was in the group. She had just learned this rule. And she shared an article or a link or something about Candace Owens in the group. And she wasn't trolling. She was serious. She had just learned of Candace Owens. And she was like, I know I'm new to this group and I've been learning so much. And thank you to the high priestesses. She didn't call them that, but And then she said, "I just heard this woman, a lot of conservatives in my family are sharing her, this black woman, Candace Owens, and I'm confused. Everything she says is against what I've been learning, but I've also been told I need to shut up and listen, sit down and listen to black women, and I'm not sure what to do." Okay. Much like in a cult, the longer you're in it, you lose all sense of self. You lose your ability to make decisions and to come up with your own opinions. You go to the cult for everything. You go to the cult to learn how to have friends. You go to the cult to learn what to say to people. You go to the cult to learn what you're supposed to think about Candace Owens or something else. So she comes to the cult. She's like in Courageous Conversations. What do I make of Candace Owens? On the one hand, I've been told I need to sit down and listen because she's black and I'm white. But on the other hand, she's saying things that disagree with everything I've learned. And do you know what the black woman in Georgetown, Texas, in the Courageous Conversations came in and said? She did exactly what Saira Rao is doing here. They have all these little trapdoors, these little caveats. White people, they say, sit down and listen to black people unless it's a conservative black person or it's a non-woke in any way black person, a classically liberal black person, someone who's not woke. Don't listen to them. Why? Because they're a token. Because they've internalized their own oppression. They're self-hating racists. Because they're gaslighting you. Like, they have all these like excuses. And white people who are in this world who are falling for this shit. Let me ask you a question. Have you noticed that at the end of the day, the rules they give you, actually, they don't follow at all? The real rule, if you get down underneath it, is only listen to woke people. Don't listen to anyone who's not woke. They pretend it's about race. They pretend sit down and listen to a black person, but they only want you to listen to that black person if that black person is woke. They do not want you to listen to any conservative black person or Indian person or any conservative gay person or trans person or no. Only listen to woke people. Let me ask you another question. White people who are in these groups, do they ever tell if a white person is speaking woke and is on the same page as them and speaking all this crap, do they tell them to shut up and listen? No. It's fine for them to speak. They don't have to sit down. Why? Because they're speaking the cult language. They're speaking woke. Look at not at what they say. Look at how they behave. Everyone in your cult, they pretend it's about race on the surface, but it's really about if you're speaking the woke ideology or not. You are only allowed to speak the woke ideology. If you don't speak it, and you happen to be, if you don't speak it and you're a straight white man, oh, it's because you're a straight white man and you're a racist, homophobic, sexist, it's because you're a straight white man. That's why you don't speak woke. Oh, but what if you happen to be Indian, like she's talking about here? What if you happen to be black and you don't speak it, or a black woman like Candace Owens and you don't speak it? Oh, well, don't listen to them because they're a token. They're internalizing their misogyny or their own racism and their gaslighting and they're all that. Don't listen to them. I'm just saying, look at the way they behave in your cult. They will listen to what white people talk all the day long as they're speaking woke. They don't have to sit down and shut up. As long as they're speaking the ideology, keep talking. Black people, Indian people, whoever, gay, trans people, as long as they're speaking woke, cool. If they don't speak woke, shut up. Don't listen. That's the real rule that they don't tell you. That's the one you're expected to learn without them saying out loud. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing this because we're already at an hour and a half and I want to get to some of these clips. We're going to watch a little bit of this video. Let me just see if I missed anything. No, I think I'm good. Now, I had to pay $2.99 to rent this, and you're welcome. I'm kidding. I really didn't want to give them any money, but I wanted to show some of this. And so you don't have to pay the $2.99. This is a documentary that was made about Race2Dinner, about these racist con artists, grifters, Saira Rao and Regina Jackson. And where it's going to take us inside one of these dinners.
Just because I do not want critical race theory taught to my children in school does not mean that I'm a racist, damn it.
We know he's not a racist, or all the other things the liberal media is trying to label him with.
When you look at what happened in the last refugee crisis in Europe, what has changed?
These are not refugees from...
I'm going to skip ahead a little. Okay, Look at all these white ladies filing in to this very nice, expensive looking home, of course. Look at all these middle class to upper middle class white women.
The only thing that's going to change this is if we change the cultural DNA. And the only way you can change the cultural DNA is through personal human interactions. And we know that breaking bread with people is the best way to do that. So I want a show of hands of everyone at this table.
I just want to say, breaking bread, I do this. I haven't done a civility dinner in a while, but I am going to bring them back eventually. We're going to do another one, probably in this house. We break bread, and they are taking a truth. This is what liars and conners and grifters do. They take a truth and they put the truth in the center and they wrap a big lie around it. It is true. Human interaction, sitting down face to face, breaking bread with people, it's a great way to break down barriers and have real, true conversations. And civility dinners, here's the difference. I'm not trying to push an ideology or a belief system on anyone who comes. I'm not trying to tell them why they're wrong. I'm not trying to invite people of one belief system so I can convert them to another one. We have people come from across the political spectrum, different faiths, no faith, and the only goal is for people to understand each other better. Now, it self-selects. You're not going to get extremists. You're not going to get woke people there. And just like you're not going to get white supremacists there, they self-select out. They don't want to talk to people who are different than them. They don't want to go to a dinner where the whole point is getting to know people with different opinions. But I'm not coming, and these dinners are free. I don't charge you $2,500. They're free. You just pay for your food, or you bring food. We do a potluck. This is a very expensive. Let us take your money from you and pretend this is about breaking down barriers and dialogue, but it's really about not only are we taking your money from you, but we are going to push an evil racist ideology into your heads and brainwash you, and you're paying us to do it. Isn't that crazy?
Who is racist?
Wait, let me back up.
So I want a show of hands of everyone at this table who is racist.
Deconstructing Becky, deconstructing Karen, it says. By the way, Jamie says potluck good, $500 a plate bad. Jamie, it's not $500 a plate. It's $2,500 a plate to be at one of these dinners. But that was 3 years ago. It's probably more now.
I must confess that over the past few years, I have been
White woman.
We're going to skip ahead because they try and misuse MLK, who is rightly actually talking about racism among white liberals. They talk about Saira Rao and where she came from, and she says she used to be a white liberal in an Indian woman's body, and she interacted in the world like a white liberal, and it wasn't until she started doing this work that she really found her purpose. They talk about the hate mail that she gets. They show some of it. I will say one thing about the hate mail. She has a tactic she uses on Twitter, and what a lot of woke people do this. She tries to say the most racist, inflammatory things, hoping to provoke if she speaks with a lot of vitriol, she hopes to provoke an equal and opposite reaction from people reading who don't have self-control. And she's very successful at it. And I'm sure you guys have seen this before. She is in a way trolling people, though not for laughs. She's mining. She's trying to get these angry reactions that she can show people and say, see, look at how racist and awful these people are who don't like me. If you are someone who gets pulled into that a lot, if you get tricked by that a lot, like maybe maybe what God is trying to teach you, and if you don't believe in God, then the universe or whatever, maybe something it could be good for you to learn is discipline. It doesn't mean don't tell her what she is. This woman is a racist, con artist, grifter. You can tell her what she is. But don't get tricked into saying something stupid. I think some of the stuff she showed was like the N-word at one of them and like whatever. Don't get tricked into saying something stupid. Don't be that easy to manipulate. She's trying to manipulate you people. I don't think anybody in my chat would ever do that. So it's kind of moot, but just in case. Super Base for $2. Thank you for the super chat. Sorry, says, holy crap, these two cultists are insufferable. Yeah, they make a lot of money being this insufferable though, right? It's crazy. Okay, so they show all the hate mail she gets that she provokes. People don't fall into that trap. And oh, thank you. Super Base just gifted 10 memberships. Deprogrammed memberships. That's awesome. Thank you, dude. Okay. So they show the hate mail she gets, and now this is great. Now they're sitting down with a white woman who works with them, who is the type who wants to be friends with this kind of cultist and eventually became their friend. And they're talking about the business side, like the money-making side of this. Here we go.
Racism. I think the thing that I was totally unprepared for was when, you just talk about white people. You say the words white people, and those white people want to come and kill you.
Here's the hate mail part.
Even if it means one white woman at a time, I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to say this one more time. Don't get played. Don't be so easy to manipulate. Don't get played into saying stupid shit like that. I mean, I understand being angry. I don't understand letting yourself be controlled by another person so easily. Just the way I look at it.
We're going to FaceTime her.
Good thing I put on my face.
She put on her face. For you.
Nothing like a
For
face.
you. Okay, let's do this. Yeah. That's all right. Can I just say one thing that we were laughing about, which white women being late. It's classic.
Oh my God.
And kisses.
So this white woman that they have now decided, oh yes, I will use you. This white woman who was desperate to be friends with them and not just to pay for the class and be a virtue signal about how she paid for the class and everyone thinks I'm a good wife, but to go further and to take it further and work for that. She's like, this is the way this white woman proves that she's like, I'm not one of the virtue signaling ones. I'm not one of the white savior ones. How do I prove that? Let me go above and beyond and work with them. Okay. And do you see their dynamic here? When she first walks in, they're like, you're late, white woman. And they're both laughing at her. I'm not saying I might even laugh at that too, but they have a weird dynamic where it's like they sort of get to part of their relationship. And if you're in a relationship with this kind of a woke narcissist, a woke grifter who happens to be a person of color, or if you happen to be white, let's put it that way, part of the relationship is going to be you having to be okay with them constantly forcing you to, self-flagellate or to be you're inferior. Yeah. Get struggled. Yeah.
A lot of people coming in. No. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Every white woman that we can get down this road actually has tremendous ability to start turning their own networks, which are huge.
Okay, so here's Are you
Oh,
ready?
God.
Potential deals. Okay.
She's so dramatic. Let's see. She's worse than me. Holy shit. Look at this. Oh,
Okay.
my God.
These are people. Like, how many dinners?
Well, what we're looking at, let me tell you.
Look at these cult markers on this white lady's laptop. So she's a member of BLM, and she's a member of the blue one there with the equal sign, the Human Rights Campaign, the HRC. Both of these are thoroughly woke grifting organizations that exist to push evil ideology into the world and brainwash people and separate people from their money.
Genevieve, is licensing the business,
Yeah,
as
please.
in franchising.
Yeah, well, that's
Okay.
what women are asking
Yes.
for.
So that's what
another thing on the
women of
agenda.
color
Okay.
are asking
Yes,
for.
yes.
And so that's what we will be working
Okay.
on tomorrow. And then we'll be meeting with
Okay.
Crystal on that.
I'll add that.
Genevieve, you would.
So these are all business deals. They're very excited about all the money they're going to be making. And yeah, they're talking about licensing Race2Dinner to other women of color and other places, franchising it essentially. So, they're finding like the high priestess in Georgetown, Texas, the black woman that runs the courageous conversations, like finding women like her, the high priestess, the grifters, the small ones in these local communities, and giving them the name Race2Dinner and giving them the materials and franchising and sharing in the profits. Like this is what they're talking about. They're so excited about all the money. Somebody says, so this is a business to them. Yes, this is a huge business to them. Thousands of dollars per person to come to these dinners.
Fit so good into my family. We all are so loud, and there's 9 of us, and my daughter will go, Mom, you guys scare me.
Oh my God,
Everybody's talking
Are
and
you
nobody's
so loud?
listening.
I've never heard that before.
I've been following Saira on social media for a long time. I wanted to be Saira's friend. She's so triggering. And
See, this is why I had to say I was wrong. Some white people, or some people, it's not bound by white, I guess. Some people do want to be friends with a crazy ass narcissist con artist like this. They do. They see it and they're like, that's a powerful person. I must get close to them. And for the narcissist or the con artist, they will see a woman like this and say, this is someone I can use. This is someone who's willing to support everything I do. Like a HD tutor, I think he's talked a little bit about some of the narcissist relationships where they have like a lesser narcissist who kind of is underneath them, who works at their beck and call. And that's what this makes me think of, the greater and the lesser narcissist. I need to be friends with that con artist.
And it's so good. It's so needed. We had the dinner at my house. I wanted to like graduate and be like, I have my certificate and I like survived a dinner with Race2Dinner, and like, here's my certificate. And now I'm like super woke, which is all white supremacy. Like every single bit of that.
So she is admitting, which is what I said, these wealthy white women take this class because they want to feel good and feel like I've done the work. I've paid the money. I am now, look at me. I am not one of the bad ones. I'm one of the good white people. It's all about what other people think, convincing other people and themselves that they are not racist. And they think this is the way to do it. Now, what's interesting about her, she took it a step further. She heard that criticism of, oh, you just want to be a white savior. Oh, you just want to take the class for this reason. Because like I said, you can never win in this ideology. So you're still losing. You came and you took this class and you just wanted to be one of the good white people. And that worked on her. So now she's gone a step further. I will become your flying monkey. I will work for you. I will go further. I'm not like these dumb white women that we rip off at these classes who just come so they can feel good. I'm not like that anymore. I work for you now. I've made it my life. That's what this woman is. Somebody called her a flying monkey. She is.
Every single bit of that is all totally white supremacy.
I want to do boomerang with the 3 of us.
Okay.
What is a boomerang?
You're going to love it.
Let's do it right now.
There's no noise. It's just movement.
Hilarious. She's like the Energizer Bunny.
I'm one of the Beckys. I'm somewhere. And here's the thing. I don't know what kind of Becky I am, but I'm pretty sure that my black and brown friends know exactly what kind of Becky I am.
Before we go any further, what is a Becky or a Karen?
So they're about to define Becky, and I think it's pretty funny that, yes, somebody said, Dion said, humiliate me harder, daddy. This is all about self-flagellation. It is. A lot of it is this sort of need to be like, I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. And she calls herself a Becky in that way. It's weird. It's funny. My husband and I, there's a type of white woman that is very common on the 290 wine trail, the hill country in Texas. They all dress the same. They all it's like they're in costume and they travel in groups, and they all have the same like camel colored skin tight jeans, and they have knee-high riding boots, and they're all like dark black or brown, and they all have the camel colored matching camel colored hats, and like a cream colored sweater with a scarf. But there's nothing wrong with that outfit. It's just they all wear it. It's almost like they go to a store and they pick the whole outfit off the rack, like Where's Waldo, and they wear it in groups, so it seems like a costume. It's bizarre. You've seen this, I'm sure, with any other any culture or geographical location where people just kind of something becomes popular and everyone wears that thing. It's like that. But we kind of laugh. We'll call them the wine Beckys sometimes. But it's kind of like just it's a person who conforms. That's the way I use that word. It's a woman who conforms. And so she's calling herself a Becky. She's a conformist. You're going to see here, they define it a little differently, but.
In general, it's a pejorative term, mostly used for describing an entitled white woman. The worst of the Karens use their societal privilege to oppress people of color, most commonly calling a manager, or worse, calling the cops.
There is an African-American man. I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. Please send the cops.
Illegally selling water without a permit on my property.
It's not your property.
Hi, I'm asking you if this is your property.
You're accusing me of a crime, correct?
I am not a racist person.
You just made a
But you know
racist
what?
comment.
You need to go home.
You know what a signal is? Guess what? Even in China, they have signal lights.
I hear you have a problem with these gentlemen having a barbecue here at the lake.
Why are you taking the posters down? Because all lives matter. No, she is crazy.
You're crazy.
Where is their safety?
Let me just say, I shouldn't have to point this out, but I guess with leftists, I do. You can cherry pick any demographic and put these same freaking videos up. You can, and worse. And if you were on the left and you only see the white women Karen videos, like you are missing all of the freak out and accuse people of racism at Walmart videos, screaming, having to be carried out of the store while you're accusing people of racism. You're missing currently what's happening, a lot of woke white women tearing down pictures of the Israelis who were kidnapped by Hamas, tearing them down. Why would you tear down a poster of a missing person? I've seen probably 50 of those videos now. Crazy ass woke people doing that shit. Sorry for the cursing, doing that stuff. Black Lives Matter, insanity. Like there are any number of videos of woke people screaming, destroying property, tearing things down. Where have you been? So yeah, congratulations. You rounded up a bunch of videos of probably personality disordered people, these who happen to be white women. You could have done any group. You could have done any group in any ideology. But okay, we're setting it up that there's this terrible problem in society, and that the problem's not the craziness, it's not the personality disorders, that the problem is white women with the personality. Okay. Keri swore tip jar, says Pirate Hansi. 2 pounds. Is that all it takes? Thank you, sir. I'm gonna watch my language though. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Okay, here we go.
There's no safety.
I would kill him. The law says I can't kill them.
La la la, la 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 la. I love you too. You fucking bitch. Get out of here, man. I'm gonna call 911.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately.
Go on your reservation. Nasty Mexican dog.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Saira.
Hey, Lori. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jackie, nice to meet you. Thank you all.
I just love that one of them is named Becky and also they're drinking wine. Let's continue.
Thank you for being here this evening. We want to have a conversation that we believe is very important. And one of the reasons why the United States can't really move forward is because we can never have the conversation about race.
My name is Saira Rao. Thank you all so much for coming.
Like Regina said, we have this elephant in the room that's killing us all. White supremacy and racism is bad for everyone, including white people. I think we have a window right now, and you all are the key.
Okay, this is an inversion. What she's saying is the exact opposite of the truth. Well, first of all, white supremacy, yes, is bad. That's true. That's a nugget of truth wrapped in it. White supremacy is bad for everyone, including white people. I agree with that statement. Woke is not good for everyone. Here's the problem. Woke is the same. It's just another flavor of what white supremacy is. So to be selling these people on woke, it's like you're doing the same thing. I could stand up there and I could say truthfully, woke ideology is harmful to everyone, including people of color and white people. That's true also. What she's doing is like substituting one evil for another version of that evil.
White women are the key. You have more power than you'll ever know. In this time and place, if you all can join us and join our...
By the way, building up the narcissism, inflating their egos. White women are the key. You've got so much power. You're here because you're special and important. You're here because you are needed. People want to feel needed, especially these kind of women. They want to feel needed, like they're good, like on the right side of history. This is the psychology behind the people who are targets of this kind of con artistry. They want to feel important. They want to feel like the good guys. They want to feel like they're ending racism. They're one of the good kinds of white people. They want to walk in the room and they want to, because they think so much and continuously about Black people. When they see a Black person, they're like, how do I make that Black person my friend? They assume things about that Black person and they want that Black person to look at them and somehow know, I want to make sure that Black person knows I'm one of the good ones. That's why they say weird and awkward things that come out the wrong way because they're trying to telegraph like, I'm one of you.
Sisterhood, the world changes. That's why I'm here, because it all starts with conversation. So thank you sincerely for being here, because it's not an easy conversation and you didn't have to be here. You chose to be here.
Again, building up the narcissism. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving us $2,500 each to be here. You did the right thing. We're going to start it off by making you feel good and inflate your egos. You're here because you're important and you're trying to be good people. It's really good that you spent that $2,500 a person to be here. Thank you.
I'd love if everyone could just go around the table and briefly introduce yourselves, say a little bit about yourselves and why you're here.
I have 2 young children, and it's important for me that they grow up colorblind, right?
Did you see them cut away to Regina? Like, this is a clueless white person who is obviously has not been woke for very long, is at the beginning of her woke journey into the woke cult, because they do not like the phrase colorblind. They think it's racist. They say it is racist to say that you're colorblind, that it is racist to aim for a colorblind society, that we all see race and they basically think about why an ideology would want to fight the idea of being colorblind, because this ideology wants you to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. Social justice and woke, just like white supremacy, it tells you have to look at race. You have to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. So if you say, I wish we were all colorblind, they're going to have to fight that and say, no, colorblind is not the answer. Colorblind is the answer, by the way. Being colorblind is the answer. That woman is going to be surprised because she thinks she's at a liberal gathering, and liberals believe in a colorblind society and in individualism. Lady, you're not at a liberal gathering. They may pretend to be liberals. They're not. You're at a woke gathering. Woke is illiberal. It's authoritarian. It's collectivist. It's not individualist. It's not about colorblind society. Race is very important. Looking at race and judging and treating people differently on the basis of race is what these people are all about. I love it that she stepped in it like right away. Why are you here? I want my kids to grow up in a colorblind society.
Artist and a barista, and I learned about this through Saira, through your Facebook. The reason I'm here is because I've always thought of myself as being like kind of woke. And I mean, you know, my best friend is Mexican, my partner is biracial. We have these conversations all the time. But then through following your posts and interacting on your posts, I realized I'm not doing that great. And I feel like there's a racist white man living in my brain, and it's my dad's voice.
I'm a descendant of slave traders who believes very strongly in telling ugly history. It's an honor to be here, and I'm willing and wanting to get uncomfortable because I think that's what we need to do.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
Absolutely right.
I'm half Mexican, half white, and my family has every shade under the sun in it. So for me, race has never really been a thing.
Hi, Hazel. Do believe that this is such an important conversation, especially because I do have 2 children that are young, that it's on us to do better, to do more.
My kids are biracial, so my husband is Hispanic and white, and I don't see color. I don't. So how she said, I'm blinded to color. Like it doesn't faze me.
Oh my gosh, 2 of them stepped into the colorblind trap. Let's see what happens. I don't see color. Oh my gosh. You lady, you don't know what this is yet. I'm sorry. Someone who was in the call, this is very funny to me. You're stepping in the bear trap. Yeah, I was like, here's a big old foot going into a big old bear trap. I thought we were all colorblind here. Isn't that the goal? No, you're not at a liberal convention. You're at a woke, racist dinner party.
Me at all. When we bleed red.
Tonight because she committed 2 sins. She said she's colorblind, she doesn't see color, and she says we're all the same, that when we get cut, we all bleed red. No! They don't believe in anything that breaks down barriers that shows we're all the same. That's why they hate all lives matter. They hate. No, you just said when we bleed, we all bleed red. That is unifying. That doesn't cause racial division. This is about racial division, lady. Get on the right page.
Confused. I watched my son feel victimized. He felt that because he was a white male, that he was a victim of reverse racism.
We're all human. We all have a light, a heart shining within us that needs to be seen. We all need to be a little bit better and just recognize the love in each and every one of us.
Every single dinner, without fail, we've got like the woke wars. And so it really is this like being wedded to how not racist you are, but it's a start. It's a start, and you've got to start somewhere.
So basically, Saira is saying this is bad because they are all wedded to the idea that they're colorblind, that they're not racist, right? People were talking about how hilarious this is, and somebody said, "You're enjoying this too much." Where's the funny one though? About the lady who said, "When we cut, we all bleed red." Jamie says they all bleed rainbows. They bleed rainbows. Okay, let's continue.
One of the things we know is that you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. So we're here to help you acknowledge some things and to try and work on changing some things.
So I've heard this a couple times already. Colorblind, and you don't see color. And I'm just gonna.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you? If you are on the left and you're a white woman who wound up here because you're trying to get more info about this kind of crap because you're considering going to one of these, what did I tell you? They stepped in the colorblind trap. This is funny. Let's hear why you're a racist now for saying that you believe in a colorblind society, like Martin Luther King did, by the way.
One of the things we know is that you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. So we're here to help you acknowledge some things and to try and work on changing some things.
So I've heard this a couple times already. colorblind and you don't see color, and I'm just going to drop the bomb here, that's white supremacy.
That's white supremacy to say colorblind.
Is white supremacy.
Colorblindness
You even
is white
said, I don't see the
supremacy.
color of anyone's skin because when we cut ourselves open, we all bleed red.
I told you.
So you acknowledge that you see the red. How can you not see the color of our skin?
Okay, I told you. Now, caveat, I only watched the beginning of this. I didn't get this far. I did not know this was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen, but I didn't already see it. I knew it was going to happen. I'm telling you. She had a problem with when we cut you, we all bleed red. She had a problem with that. And she had a problem with colorblind. And now she's telling these women, not just that that is evidence that they are racist, that they want to live in a society that's colorblind, but that it is evidence of white supremacy. The worst thing you could be at these dinner parties, the white supremacy. She's calling them white supremacists. This is inversion, upside down, right? If you believe in a colorblind society where we don't judge and treat people differently on the basis of race, you're a white supremacist. That's what she's saying. It's a filthy, filthy lie. And you're watching these people try and process this like, huh? This is the beginning of a brainwashing, of a cult brainwashing. Let me tell you what they're doing here. If you're a white lady and you're considering giving these people $2,500 to go to a dinner or however amount of money, pull up a chair. This is for free. Let me tell you what they're doing. They are conflating two. I'm going to make this easy to understand. They're conflating two different things that have the same word. Okay. They're conflating two different things. They're playing. This is like a shell game where you put something under a shell and you move it. If you say, like these women did, I'm colorblind, I want my kids to live in a colorblind society. What does that woman mean when she says that? She means I want my kids to live in a society where they don't judge and treat people differently on the basis of race, where that's not a big thing that they look at in order to determine how to treat a person. That's what that means. We all know that that's what that means. Colorblind society. I want my kids to live in a colorblind society. Does she mean she wants her kids to experience red, green colorblindness and to go blind to color? No. Nobody would think that. That's not what she means. She's not saying, I want the world to be a place where we all can see in gray and we can't see color and we physically cannot see it. That's what I want. I have a dream, and it's that we physically cannot see color anymore. That's not what she means. We know this. This is a normal person, common sense thing. When she says, I want my kids to live in a colorblind society, she doesn't mean physically unable to see color. What Saira is doing is pretending that because people can physically see color and that we're not all colorblind, that also means it's impossible to be the other kind of colorblind. This woman says she wants to live in that kind of world, that colorblind world, where you don't judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. Saira's saying, well, because we can see color, we're not colorblind, physically colorblind. It is impossible to be colorblind the other way, the way that you mean. It is impossible to not judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. That is a filthy lie. It's of the devil, in my opinion. You may not believe in the devil. That's okay. Either way, it's where evil comes from. It is a filthy lie to say, what a horrible thing. Why are you going to a dinner, not just going to dinner, but paying thousands of dollars to learn how to not be a racist by people who believe it is impossible to not be a racist? They're telling you it's impossible to be colorblind in the way you view the world and interact with people. It's impossible to live in the world. It's impossible to not judge and treat people differently based on what racial group they're in. That's bullshit. Do you know what says that's bullshit? Liberalism. Martin Luther King. Do you know how we ended racial segregation in this country? How we rooted racism out of our laws, our legal system? How did we do that? By a shared humanity The idea that when we cut, we all bleed red. Liberalism, by the idea that you should not, that it is wrong, that it is immoral to judge and treat people differently on the basis of race. That's how we progressed as far as we did until this woke crap, this social justice racist crap started moving in and trying to pervert everything and turn us backwards. They are taking us backwards in time. They are saying, you can't live in a colorblind world. Martin Luther King's dream, not possible. Not possible to live in a world where your kids aren't judged on the basis of the race. That's what they are saying here, explicitly, out loud saying it. That it's white supremacy. Now that's a crazy lie. It's white supremacy to want to live in a colorblind society. Don't let them conflate those two different definitions of colorblind and play this trick on you. You're not that dumb. You're not that dumb. If you're looking at what they're doing and you're going, something's wrong here. Yes, it's something is wrong here. Something's very wrong here. Very wrong. These people don't have good intentions for you, dinner party ladies. They don't have good intentions for the world. Don't fall for this crap. Did I explain that okay, guys, in the chat? Do you think that was okay if somebody was seeing this for the first time? Oh my goodness. I'll say one other thing about MLK. Go back and read his speeches. Read all of them. Yeah, read the ones where he's critical of white liberals who are racist. Read all of them. He used inclusive language, not exclusive language. Inclusivity, actual inclusivity is, I want to live in a colorblind society. Actual inclusivity is when we cut, we all bleed red. Actual inclusivity is finding the things we have in common and appealing to our shared humanity. Do you know what he did in his speeches? He appealed to our shared humanity across racial lines. Social justice and these Race to Dinner, con artists, woke grifters, and courageous conversations, all of them, they do the opposite. They do not appeal to shared humanity. They don't try and actually break down racial divisions and barriers. They build them up. They build up more. They're the exact opposite of liberalism. They're the exact opposite of MLK. They are telling you white people are like this, black people are like this. Let's build a little wall between the races, between the different races. If you're white, you treat a person like this. If you're black, you treat them like this. If you're Indian, you treat them like this. Don't say this to this racial group. If you're in this racial group, you do this. And if you're in, it's all separate. Us and them, us and them, us and them. They got physically, she recoiled. They upset if you say something true. If we cut, we all bleed red. Why is that so upsetting to them? Because that is the actual antidote to racism. Wanting to live in a colorblind society is the actual antidote to racism. And they're not selling that at this dinner. You just brought the antidote to what they are selling you into the room. They have to now cast it out and tell you that's the worst thing imaginable. It's so bad it's white supremacy. Don't ever say colorblind in this dinner table again. Don't ever say if we're cut, we all bleed red at this dinner table again. Why? Because it's the antidote to the poison they are selling you at this dinner. Look at their faces as they're trying to process this. Wait, what? Being colorblind's bad?
And you don't see color. And I'm just going to drop the bomb here. That's white supremacy. Color blindness is white supremacy. You even said, I don't see the color of anyone's skin because when we cut ourselves open, we all bleed red. So you acknowledge that you see the red. How can you not see the color of our skin?
Yes, I acknowledge I see the red, and I also see that you are a brown shade because I am not physically colorblind, you dumbass. What I said is I want to live in a society where we don't treat people differently on the basis of what color we are. Quit confusing the two. If somebody ever does this to you, yeah, I see the red because did you think I meant I was physically colorblind? Did you think I meant that I want my kids to grow up to be physically colorblind? Are you that dumb? You're not that dumb. You're manipulative. That's what Saira is. She's not that dumb. She didn't think that. She's manipulative.
Because to me, my husband's Hispanic. I've dated every race. It doesn't, to me, I see inside. I see your love, your morals, your values. I see what we have in common. Like my husband, we enjoy doing things together, like the different things I don't see.
Maybe like your experience in the world is different than theirs.
So this sucks. So this woman's explaining that she's dated men of all races, that her husband's Latino, that she's trying to explain, and what I meant by colorblind is that I don't treat people differently on the basis of race. It's not a big factor to me what race they are in deciding who I marry or date or how I treat people. Listen to that scary music. They're like telling her why she's wrong. And look at the white woman to her left. Look at what she just did. She pulled one of the classic SJW social justice warrior woke things, which is, what is it? That rule we discussed earlier, the rule they break all the time. They don't actually live this rule. They just say it. It's an easy way out of something. Their experience is different than yours, meaning the two women of color leading this, you need to shut up and listen to them. Their experience is different. Their experience is different. Listen to them. She just threw in the white person shut up and listen card. Almost all of the things they say in woke are meant to end questions, to end discussion, to end dialogue. They just throw these cards like, okay, white privilege card done. You can't say anything anymore, right? Like everything you've said is invalidated. Everything you just said about being married to a Latino guy and dating guys of different races. How's it invalidated? Because those women there leading the course are women of color and you're not. So boom, shut up and listen. That's what she just did.
You walk through the world with a different experience because you are a white woman.
What is the number one thing that white women feel the desperate need to be over and above everything else? Nice. White women feel the desperate need to be nice. It's white women's niceness that is killing us all. And so what does nice mean for white women?
Again, this is amazing because on some level, I agree with you. White women have a nice problem. They want to be thought of as nice and likable, but you don't actually think that's a problem, Saira. You actually have found a way to exploit it because you get these nice white women in a room and you teach them your way of being nice. And you're telling them you're not really nice with what you're doing over here. You need to give me $2,500 and I'm going to teach you how to be the anti-racist nice. You are exploiting, if you look at the big five personality, to try and pin this down to some data or statistics or pin it in something based in reality. Women, if they do the big five personality test, they score much higher in agreeableness than men do. And the agreeableness sounds good. It's not always a good thing. It's that need to be liked or to be thought of as nice, and they care more about what people think about them. And you found a way to exploit that agreeableness, that desire to be thought of as nice, and to make money off of it.
It means smiling. It means being polite. It means not calling out oppression when it happens. When you say you're colorblind, you erase us.
No.
But you're not being defensive.
No, lie. Look what she's doing again. She's pretending that colorblind meaning not judging and treating people differently on the basis of race, colorblind as a descriptor for a society in which that's not a factor. A person's race is not a factor in how you judge them or treat them. She's pretending like that's physically colorblind and unable to see color. She just said, if you want to live in a colorblind society, a world where your kids don't know racism and race is not a big deal and it's not a factor in how they judge and treat people. If you want to do that, then you physically you're saying you physically can't see me and you're erasing me. No. Are these women going to be dumb enough to fall for this crap? Yes. I'm telling you.
I know
We're sharing our truth.
And I'm sharing my truth too. I mean, that to me is, to me is saying.
We need to educate ourselves so much because we have no idea.
Okay. This is one of the cult phrases. So this woman, I think this old woman here, I think she's been in it longer than some of the others. She did not step into the colorblind trap. She did not. And she just used one of the cult phrases, which is educate yourself. We need to be educated. We need to be educated, meaning brain. It means in the woke lexicon, what does it actually mean when they say that? Brainwashed. You haven't been brainwashed enough yet. You haven't let these power hungry snakes, these con artists sitting up here bilking us for money, you haven't let them put their tentacles into your brain enough yet.
It's niceness that is killing us all. And so what does nice mean for white women? It means smiling. It means being polite. It means not calling out oppression when it happens. When you say you're colorblind, you erase us.
No.
But you're not being defensive as well. I don't.
We're sharing our truth.
And I'm sharing my truth too. I mean, that to me is. I mean, to me is saying.
Okay, I got to stop it here again. There's so much happening here. So she just says to them, the woman they're all piling on right now, she says, but you're being defensive too, because they cut, but somebody must have just accused her of being defensive. Okay. In woke ideology, it's a double standard completely. There's no, you're never, if you are walking in expecting them to behave like civil, rational people who have unchanging principles that they don't break, you're not going to find that. They contradict all of their own rules all the time. We just talked about that earlier, where they say white people need to sit down and listen to black people. Unless that black person's conservative, then it's like the absolute opposite. Don't do it. Don't do that rule, right? They get to call you defensive, but you don't get to call them defensive. And why? Here's the easiest answer. Because they can look at you and say, well, you're white, so you don't get. That's why. But actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's just the surface level and the easiest thing. Underneath that, if this were a black woman saying this, who showed up at their dinner somehow, if this were a black woman saying this, they would say, it's because you're not speaking woke. That's why you have to. It's always why you have to shut up. That's always why you're being defensive, but they're not. That's why the double standard all the time. But because this woman's white, that's the first and easiest thing to point to. You're being defensive. It's white. And she's like, but aren't you being defensive? And what did the black woman say? Who's leading it? The high priestess. She says, we're speaking our truth. We're not being defensive. We're speaking our truth. And so then this white woman says, but then am I not speaking my truth? You don't get to have a truth. You don't get to have a truth at the end of the day. Why? Because this is a racist ideology. Why? Because of race. That's what they'll point to. You're being defensive. They're speaking their truth. Why? Because you're white and they're black. I mean, really, it's because you're not fully woke yet and they are woke. But they can point to the race thing. That's the easiest way to do it. Isn't that insane? Are you watching this because you were thinking of going to one of these things? Why pay them? I'm going to tell you right now what they'll tell you. You don't get to have a truth. You don't get to speak a truth. They do. They get to be as defensive as they want. You don't. That's white fragility. They will call it white fragility. You don't get to cry. That's white tears, white fragility. They can cry. That's their truth.
Need to educate ourselves so much because we have no idea.
We have no idea.
This conversation is about some education.
You know, change requires pain. Most people will not change until they have what I call a significant emotional event.
And I also want to lay a couple of other.
Okay, this is great. They're telling you outright, as someone mentioned earlier, they're telling you how they manipulate people. She just admitted they are wanting to provoke a significant emotional event. What happens when a person is broken down and they get to that emotional place? It's much easier to put those tentacles in and to play around with what's inside. It is much easier to manipulate them. It is much easier to give them that feeling of redemption. This in a lot of ways tries to mimic Christianity, but without Christ. but without grace, with a lot of stuff added about how your race matters. God's like, no. Instead of sin, you have privilege, right? And then you can have varying degrees of privilege based on your race and all this. So there's a lot of differences, but it mimics in some ways Christianity. It's stolen some things from Christianity. And one of these is this redemptive moment. They want you to confess your sins. In this case, not sins, privileges, your racism, your inherent racism. They want this white woman, not the one on the screen, but the one that they're all currently piling on, to admit and to come to terms with over the course of this dinner that saying she is colorblind or wants to live in a colorblind society is white privilege. It's racist. That is white supremacy. And to tearfully acknowledge this in a struggle session. This is like a struggle session environment. They are breaking down her psyche. This is a cult. You're breaking down the psyche. You tearfully admit to something you did wrong that you didn't do. And then what happens? The abuser, those of you who've been in an abusive relationship with an individual will be better able to see it in a cult-like group or environment or ideology like this. Because what happens after they abuse you and you submit? The love bonding. Then you get the trauma bonding after, right? The trauma bonding. Then you get the good pat on the head. This will never happen again. You've admitted to what you did wrong. Things are great. Now you're in their good graces. You've grown. You've come so far. Once you admit that tearfully and emotionally, they give you that feeling of you've been redeemed. You're born again in the cult of woke. You've shed yourself of your white privilege. You've admitted how racist you are for saying you want your kids to grow up in a colorblind society. For saying that you don't really care about, you don't have racial preferences in dating and your husband's Latino. You've admitted how racist and white supremacist that is. And now you come down on bended knee and cry, and they bless you, my child. You're born again in the cult of woke. But are you really? Because unlike God, there is no forgiveness or grace in this religion. Now they own you. Now you're their slave. You're a slave to this belief system. You're going to have to do the work. And there's going to be more work and more work and more work and more words and phrases that are racist that you didn't realize were racist because they're not actually racist, but they're going to tell you they're racist. And there's going to be more that you have to continually do. And you're owned by these psychopaths and this psychopathic ideology. I'm going to pause here because we've already gone 2.5 hours, and then we'll figure out if we want to continue this now or later. Thank you to Super Based. Super Based, you're super awesome. I love your avatar. He says, he gifted 5 Deprogrammed memberships. Thank you so much. Andrew Joyner for £5 says, there was an interview with Megan Daum. I don't know if that's how you say it. And Sarah Hayter. I know Sarah Hayter with these gals, which was fun. I know of Sarah Hayter. Special Place in Hell is the channel. Thank you so much. I will check that out. Probably not till after I finish this video. Pirate Tomsky for £5. Thank you, sir. Says, I would be like, you spent $2,000 on what? What is wrong with you, woman? Look, if you are a man watching this and your wife is considering going to one of these and spending all this money, or if she did go to one, like, I'm going to say something to you. Be a man. Be a man. Like, have a backbone. Tell her you think this is dumb and a waste of money. Tell her what you think. You don't have to be a jerk while doing it, but have a spine. You may be like, oh, I'm in the kind of relationship with a controlling woman or a controlling or whatever. Maybe your wife has issues and that's why she's the prime target for something like this. Maybe you think you'd be avoiding a fight if you didn't bring it up or whatever. I'm just telling you, you're going to lose in the end anyway, because if you're in that kind of domineering relationship where you can't say what you think, like you're going to lose in the end anyway. You should say what you think. And also, honestly, if you're with a controlling, domineering person where you can't speak your mind, they may have made you think that's what they want, but they're not turned on by you. I'm going to tell you that's the truth. They view you as a weakling if you can't stand up to them. Stand up to them. If your wife is spending money on this and you think it's stupid, tell her it's stupid. Please. She will respect you more, even if she fights with you. Okay. Dion says these women are drunk on power. Yeah, they are. Okay, Jody says, I would watch the whole thing with Keri. Good, because I think I want to finish this, but I really want to give it the time we need for it. And so why don't we make this a part 1? This is already very long. And what's tomorrow? Tuesday? I don't usually do a video on Tuesday, but maybe we'll do a special stream, especially since I missed so many videos this past week being at the content house. Maybe we'll do a special stream tomorrow. It depends on what we're doing with renovation. I'll figure it out. I'll announce it. But either way, we're going to come back to this. We're at like 16 minutes in, and we need to watch the whole thing. And I want to clip this one too. I want to clip it and put it out there because I really want, if any white woman is considering going to this, any rich white woman, and she's on the internet looking up race and stuff like this, I want her to find this. Lady, let us save you psychological damage. Let us save you money. You don't need this to be a good person. Just stay with us. We're going to watch the whole thing. Stay with us. This is freaking hilarious. Wonder Bucket says, I wish Borat was at this dinner. That's great. Okay. Dion says, I would like to see the rest too. This is very interesting. Bungalow Logic says, yes. Okay, let's do this. Let's plan to watch at least another hour of it, if not the whole thing tomorrow. And I'll figure out what time and I'll announce it. We're going to do it. We're going to continue it. Z Highness says, yay. Okay. We're going to continue it then. But I'm going to wrap it up now. My husband we're still working on the Deprogrammed studio. And here, let me take this off the screen. We're still working on the Deprogrammed studio. Our goal is to have it done by the end of the year. Hopefully. We have some more sanding to do today. I think he's doing some sanding and some final texturing. And then we're going to be at the stage where I get to start painting the room. And then after we paint the room, we're going to sand the floors and stain the floors and finish the floors. After that, we're pretty much done. We'll hang the light fixture and I think that's it. So I cannot wait for you guys to see the new Deprogrammed studio. I'm very excited about it. This coming year is going to be great with the channel. We have lots of things we've been wanting to do. And I'm just very grateful to people who've helped support the show and the channel. And there's something about, if you ever listen to Jordan Peterson, he talks about the way you design a room should be for the room's purpose. So you actually want to go in there and do the thing you're supposed to do in that room. Like in a bedroom, maybe don't put a TV in there if the purpose is to sleep and relax. You decide. But in my podcast room at my old place, it was set up exactly like I wanted. It was perfect. I wanted to go in there and work, not just on the podcast, but writing and stuff. Here in the new place, the studio, you guys could never see this, but all around was just, because we were renovating all the other rooms, everything would get put in that room. So this blue couch was stuck in anything that couldn't go anywhere else was in there while we were working on other rooms. Soundproofing materials, wood, a mantle, all kinds of things. And it just became so cluttered. And I felt like I was a little mouse picking my way to the corner to do the podcast. And it just was not mentally a good environment for producing the show. Although I think we did a great job. But the point being, it's going to get even better this year because thank you to my husband, we moved the room up on the list of priorities and we're doing it now. And it's going to be perfect and clean and the way it's supposed to be. And it's going to be set up just in a lovely, I'm going to paint it the colors that help me think. And I'm just very grateful for it. So anyway, thank you. And thank you to my husband. And thank you to David, who's helped us do a lot of work in that room. Yes, Dion, it was like an episode of Hoarders. You just didn't know. It was just stacked full of stuff. It was crazy. If people come to the house concerts and I would open that room and be like, this is where we put everything. until we're done renovating. And also I stream in here. Therese, have a great night. You too. Okay, guys. We're going to take off. I'll see you possibly tomorrow. I'll make an announcement. I hope you have a good night, and I will talk to you later. Where's the video? There we go. Okay, bye.